What's up everybody, this is Danny, and today I'm going to be unboxing and reviewing a very interesting device called the Axon Phone. And many of you are probably wondering, what exactly is an Axon Phone? Well, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about it and more. First of all, it is manufactured by ZTE. They are not new to the smartphone market, but fairly new to the US, and this is their first flagship. It's available in 3 different colors, but the big deal about this phone is that it is $449 unlocked, and it's quite a package and full of high-end specs. Let's crack into the box and see what comes with it. First, you get the Axon Phone, and this is the black version, and it looks nice. But let's set this aside for a minute. And you get a packet on top of the box, and we'll get back to that later, and you'll see all of your accessories here, starting with the micro USB to USB charging cord and the power brick for quick charge 2.0 compatibility. And what's awesome is that you also get a pair of JBL headphones to enjoy the high-end audio focus of this phone, which we'll go over later, but I love premium headphones bundled with smartphones. Opening up that package we saw earlier reveals just some documentation, but in a weird poster type fashion, so this is your quick start guide. Let's peel off the screen protector on the front, and the design is premium, made mostly of metal with some matte plastic mixed in, and it looks great. It's a little tall though due to the screen size, but the best way to describe it is that it looks like a fusion of the last 2 generation HTC flagship devices with a little bit of flair. So what do you think? Let's do a quick hardware tour, and on the back you will see the ZTE and Axon logo, and you really can't miss the camera arrangement on the back. It is a dual camera setup with a 13 megapixel main camera and a 2 megapixel secondary camera for depth sensing for focus adjustment after you take the shot, and you also get a dual LED flash. Up top, you get a whopping 8 megapixel front-facing camera for awesome selfies with all of your sensors, and at first look, this looks like a dual front-facing speaker setup, but it's not. You only get 1 speaker there at the bottom with the capacitive circle home button that doubles as a LED notification light. On the left side, you get a SIM card tray for support for LTE on T-Mobile and AT&T, and the volume rocker. Up top, you get a noise-canceling microphone and the 3.5mm headphone jack. And on the right side, there is a power button there, perfectly placed for ergonomics, and a dedicated camera shutter button, which you don't see very much. And finally, on the bottom, you get the micro USB port and the primary microphone. And by the way, the Axon only has 32 gigs of internal storage with no SD card slot. So there is the Axon Phone all booted up and configured, and the first thing you'll notice is its large 5.5-inch Quad HD IPS display with 534 pixels per inch, and let me tell you, this is a beautiful display. It has decent viewing angles, the colors are vibrant, the blacks are deep, and it's nice and bright, so viewing in direct sunlight, it's manageable. The display is super crispy, so I think this is one of the highlights of the Axon Phone. You won't be disappointed. Software-wise, it's running the latest build of Android Lollipop at this time, and the software is pretty much stock Android with a few enhancements thrown on top. So if you swipe from the bottom, you'll get a cool widget display for music, news, and favorites, and the capacitive button layout has no markings, so you can change the orientation of the back and multitasking buttons, and since the skin is not overbearing, the Axon Phone is pretty snappy. Everyday performance has been great for me in my 2 weeks of testing. A lot of that has to do with its high-end Snapdragon 810 processor with 4 GB of RAM, so this thing is a beast when it comes to raw power. So it's really nice to see this kind of power package in such a well-priced phone. The Adreno 430 GPU crunches through games with smooth frame rates, and many of you are probably wondering if I had any heat issues with the Snapdragon 810, but honestly, I've had no problems. If you're playing intensive games for long periods of time, of course it gets warm, but nothing crazy here. The one thing in software and hardware I want to talk about is the Axon's claims in high fidelity music experience, and mostly this is achieved by the inclusion of Dolby Audio to enhance your music. ZTE claims that there is a higher end DAC in this phone, so I had to try it out. Can you really tell the difference on this phone? The answer is yes you can. While I think it's probably mostly software and equalizer based, I can say that the music sounds fuller and noticeably louder when compared to other smartphones. So not overemphasizing the bass and more of the midtones. So whether you're listening to JBL headphones that were supplied or higher end over the ear headphones, you will notice a slight difference or improvement in audio quality. It's not mind-blowing or blow your face off difference, but you will notice a slight difference. There are some funky quirks with the Axon, like not being able to open the camera with the dedicated shutter button, but hopefully that will be fixed in a software update. So what about the camera? Well, diving into the software, you will see quite a bit of flexibility here, from the auto mode to the interval shooting to multi-exposure, panorama, and there's also a decent manual mode here that gives you control over the ISO, the white balance, and the focus. There is an interesting bokeh mode which gives you control over the aperture all the way down to f1.0, but this is all software based and not hardware controlled. This is more how blurred or the bokeh effect is handled in software, and you can change it after taking the shot, and it works fairly well. Sometimes you will see some distortion around the edges, but for the most part it works well, especially on well-defined subjects. As far as the images go, the Axon phone is capable of taking some great photos with punchy colors and great detail, and also some decent depth of field. But I do notice that the camera likes to overexpose and the colors can sometimes come out weird, especially in macro mode, but the manual adjustment can make the photo look quite a bit better. In some shots I felt like the focus was a little soft, but nothing terrible. HDR mode does help quite a bit, so use that when you can. When it comes to low light though, this is where the Axon struggles. It's not the worst I've seen by any means, but when I was in New York, I was able to test it at Times Square, and while noise isn't too bad, the highlights and shadows are really crushed, making the details hard to see. In extreme low light, the camera suffers from the lack of optical image stabilization, but most cameras fall apart in this category, and the Axon is no different. There is support for 4K video, and the result is pretty sharp with some good detail, so I'm glad they included this capability in this phone. So overall, this camera is definitely passable. So the Axon phone overall is a great package for its price. I mean, for $449, you're getting a super crisp 5.5-inch Quad HD display, a Snapdragon 810 processor, 4GB of RAM, a 13-megapixel camera, NFC, a metal build, and a fast software experience. Hopefully that software gets some updates and the Axon phone should be even better. I think it is a solid choice for this competitive growing market of affordable superphones, so consider it if you are looking for a phone in this market. Let me know what you guys think of the Axon phone and give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this. Subscribe to the channel for more high quality content like this, and I'll see you guys in the next video.